Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this Kendall Hunt webinar, Intro to ChatGPT for Community College Writing Programs, Early Learnings and Considerations. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but it seems from my perspective like it is really hard to escape the AI conversation nowadays. But what does AI mean for educators? Is it an intellectual revolution? Is it the death of the English essay? That is what we're going to be discussing today. And before we begin, I just want to lay out a couple of housekeeping points. The webinar is being recorded. You will automatically receive access to that via email within the coming week or so. If you have questions, please feel free to utilize either the chat or the Q&A box. We'll be addressing those at the end, but feel free to enter them at any time. Now to introduce today's speaker. Today with us, we have Ed Cuoco. He is an adjunct faculty member at Bunker Hill Community College and Wentworth Institute of Technology. He's got a BA in English and MS in Management and Marketing, and he has worked in high technology and startup companies for over 30 years as an individual contributor, co-founder, manager, and executive. For the last decade, in addition to teaching and consulting, he has focused on how to enhance writing skills for community college and first-year college students by exploring advanced computer-aided support tools and best practices in professional and academic environments. And just in my conversations with Ed, he has been doing a lot of research, a lot of monitoring into the most recent developments with AI, ChatGPT. And so I am really excited to hear from him today. So without any further ado, Ed, I'll turn things over to you.
Thanks, Megan. Hope you can all hear me. Welcome. Thanks for attending. I know this is a subject that we've all been bumping up against for quite a bit over the last few months. I'm glad you're interested in hearing a little bit about it. When ChatGPT appeared in November, it surprised, delighted, and shook us all. Its capabilities seemed endless. It can write essays, create code, translate, explain graphics and tables, diagnose medical conditions, make decisions. It can hallucinate, and it can fall in love, and a lot more. One wonders what it can't do. But for those of us who've been sort of looking at computer-assisted support for writing in particular, it's been slowly eking out for at least the last decade. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in this session. I'm using one aspect of GPT, and that is its use as a writing tool and a writing learning tool. And I've been exploring this work since the early 2000s. I had left the high-tech industry back in 2004, and I started part-time teaching writing in 2007. About 2015 or so, I began to look at AI-assisted applications that had quietly hit the market. Other people have been doing the same thing in their own little domain. And I have a quote here from Ethan Mollick from the Wharton School. And I think it sort of expresses everything that sort of we've been sort of feeling for a while. I was not expecting things in AI to keep moving as fast, but now that there is every indication that they will continue to do so, I don't think anyone knows what all this means, but I think we should be ready for a very weird world. And I think he's right. Even the inventors of this technology are surprised by what it can come up with. So in many respects, we'll all be learning our way through this in the years ahead. Let me move on here. I want to just quickly talk about what I'll be doing and then move into it. I'm going to just do some brief introductions. Megan recently just discussed me, but I will talk a little more about that. Why ChatGPT is a true game changer for writing instructors. What is GBT? Very briefly. The differences between chat and LLM are important, and LLM is the area, the large language models are the things that I've been looking at and how to take advantage of those in writing. Um, what to focus on, and it's really AI assisted writing tools now that I think are going to be sweeping the market. Considerations when adopting a new approach, and I think that's what's called for here is a new approach to how we approach writing instruction. And I have an experiment for instructors and students, and it has to do with the power of prompts. And I'll talk about those several times during this presentation. Um, and you can't really talk about GPTs without talking about the elephant in the room, and that's plagiarism. I have some things to say about plagiarism related to this. And some final thoughts. How GPT actually feels it can help us. I actually asked GPT how they can help us, and it provided some answers I think you might find kind of curious and interesting. And then a list of helpful resources at the end. And I'll open it up at the end for a collection of your thoughts and talk about answering some questions. So very quickly, my background, I studied English and comparative literature in undergrad. I got a management degree in graduate school. Most of my career has been in high tech or in publishing. I've been an editor, a writer, and a consultant in various forms and roles. I've been a product manager and a program manager, releasing what we call enterprise software systems. I've been a founding team member of several internet startups. I was part of the leading team that created the first What You See is What You Get web authoring tool in early 90s. And I spent some time at Microsoft Research looking at what is now called the metaverse and also synchronous communication in chat systems. So I have an aligned previous experience with some of this stuff that I've been using. I've been teaching foundation writing part-time over the last 16 years at Bunker Hill Community College, where I've been testing theories and testing particular types of applications along the way, and I'll talk about those. For the last 6 years or so, I focused on computer-assisted writing tools, in particular AI and collaborative writing. And AI tools have started to show up in the early 2000s, actually, and they were being applied in web in word processing systems, but now they're full bore. And I'm the author of a book called a writing guide called Writing in Our Digital World that focuses on the kinds of speed bumps that students have in writing in a completely digital environment. So let's get right to it. Well, I talk about a game changer. And I think that game changer is become an almost ubiquitous marketing cliche. So what I thought I'd do is reimagine what game changer is and look for another way to sort of describe it. And what I did was I decided to use one of OpenAI's tools called DALL-E, which is a visualization application that they support. And I asked it. Let me see if I can bring this up here. Whoops. Sorry. Second here. I asked it to generate a concept of game changer as an impressionist oil painting to see what it might do. And after 3 iterations, it came up with this. And I sort of stopped and I said, yeah, this kind of represents the essence of what a game changer is. After research in the form of AI has been around in one form or another for 30 plus years. It's a culmination of several decades of advances in software, networking, and language research. But it sprang into widespread awareness last fall as OpenAI, a non-for-profit, released the 3rd version of its work. And then something happened. And so as I looked at this, I see a kind of a chaotic firmament of stuff, and I see some intentional activity going on. At some point, And then in November of that year, it sparked a different direction and a different color, and it's moved into um, another place. And it may be confirmation bias on my part, but um, I think it sort of represents that in an impressionistic oil painting, which is kind of fun. And you can do all kinds of multimedia, multimodal activities with these tools that you couldn't in the past do, and our students can do them as well. Um, let's take a look at some hard evidence. So ChatGPT adoption has been faster than TikTok, faster than Instagram. Uh, over 1 million MAUs in 2 months. MAU stands for monthly active users. These are people that are actively using it in 2 months. According to UBS, adoption of ChatGPT advanced more quickly than TikTok or Instagram. By UBS's count, TikTok took 9 months to reach 100 million MAUs, while Instagram took 30 months to hit the same mark. ChatGPT broke TikTok's record, and the numbers are actually mind blowing. As of March of this year, ChatGPT reached 1.6 billion users. That's about 4 months after its launch. It was being used in over 169 countries and can pretty much do a great translating job on 50 languages. So it's out there. What's for me, for some perspective, it took 16 years for cell phones to reach a billion users. 16 years. So it's the fastest piece of technology adoption that the world has ever seen. Um, for me, the takeaway from these adoption numbers is people seem to be delighted in finding convenient writing help and in having a more conversational relationship with knowledge. Uh, what's amazing is this rate continues to soar as people discover its power and versatility, and it appears to have more uses than a Swiss Army knife in terms of what you can do with it. I'm not going to get into many of those here. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Essentially, it's a conversational AI model. This particular one is built by OpenAI. There are currently 6 models today that are in the works that are available for people to test. And I have a slide at the very end that you can look at when you download the slides to get access to any of those. It's a conversational chatbot built on a vast large language model. The large language model being a confederation of databases that are organized in such a way where it models a neural network that sort of creates that we have in our brains in terms of how it's kind of configured. But the main point is it's an advanced predictive text application that mimics how humans talk and copy. And write. Sorry, it's not a copying tool. It doesn't copy anything. It generates unique phrases based on prompts that you give it, queries that you ask. So that adds a certain amount of nuance and complexity to what this thing does. But it comes off looking like it's copying things, but it's not copying. Many companies are integrating these large language models into their applications. Search engines, editors. Microsoft's committed to integrate it into all of its Office tools. Google as well, and Google is also a leader in these GPT kinds of technologies, so they're integrating it into search. Graphics tools, translators, there'll be a variety of ed tech tools available, some already available. And the one I tending to focus on right now, the leader of this whole group is ChatGPT 4, which is the fourth version of this, based on the version 3.5 that came out in November. And it turns out that Microsoft's offering this for free today in its Bing on using its browser Edge. And I'll talk more about that and show it to you in a little bit. But here's what you have to remember. It's a research project. It's a work in progress. officially is what's called a research preview. Um, in other words, we're all beta testers for this. When we use it, they're looking at ways in which they can tune it to better support the customers who are using it. So it's very much like Facebook considers its products to be the people who use Facebook because of the data that they create and evolve for their searches. So we're part of the process of moving ChatGPT 4 or GPT-4 into its next stage. So it's not surprising that some are seeing far-reaching implications behind this technology. A recent article in the Wall Street Journal says generative artificial intelligence presents a philosophical and practical challenge on a scale not experienced since the start of the Enlightenment. Really big in terms of its effect that it's going to have. Iconic Henry Kissinger was involved in this. Eric Schmidt, who was the previous CEO of Google, and Daniel Huttenlocher, who is now the inaugural dean at the School of Computer Science at MIT. So, a few things. It's an extension of technical advances that over 50 years of research and practical use. So a lot of human endeavor has been dedicated toward marshaling some sort of piece of technology that we see today. Its continued advances are a certainty. We are the amount of investment in this area is mind-boggling. Microsoft has invested $10 billion in OpenAI. Industry experts now predict that over $1 trillion over the next few years will go into artificial intelligence and GPT kind of applications. We can expect a rapid expansion of features, benefits, applications, and tuning. It's already in widespread use. I said we have at least 169. It's showing up in 169 countries. And it's going to be tuned accordingly based on usage. It changes in two directions. Adam Gopnik noted in the New Yorker a few years ago, we adjust to the technology of our time as much as it adjusts to us. GPT will be changing and will be changing in the course of the eventual use of this tool. New versions will improve in both depth and quality. And really, now is the time to experiment and try new hypotheses as we prepare our students for future work using these tools. So let's look at where this all came from. Actually, it wouldn't exist without the World Wide Web, which showed up in the early 90s. Much has happened in those 32 years. There've been one incremental advance after another. The capabilities of AI just did not appear fully formed. It's required many human advances. In particular, without the web, it would have been impossible to amass enough digital knowledge and cultural artifacts to create a powerful predictive machine. But this is what the first page of the internet, when it was published on the internet, looked like. There was virtually no interactivity. The only interactivity was links. There were no pictures, no tables, no applications, no forms. It was a relatively static use of the internet at the time. But it caught on like wildfire amongst the technology crowd first, and then eventually it moved itself into public use. And at that time, at the same time, it began to accrue more functionality and more important features that could be benefit today. And at the same time, it created a lot of data, networked data that was available for applications like GPT transformers to basically use. So it just simply shows that technology is moving forward with advances, and I expect the same thing will be happening with GPT. So how to start? Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that I've been focusing especially on tools that tackle the drudgery of writing so students can spend more of their energy refining their work. I found that these tools can be very helpful in a pragmatic way. The goal has been to reduce friction many of us experience completing writing projects. In the process, I think they help students build more durable, adaptable skills that they can take with them, where they will probably have access to a screen somewhere along the way, so they will interact with. For example, I recently worked with a documentary director who had many false starts capturing his intentions for a funding proposal. We collaborated through 6 repetitive sessions in a matter of less than a half hour, asking various AI queries in prompts. And by the time we got to the 6th, he was off and running. He said, "Okay, I got it. I can use this," and he could take off on his own. So I recommend begin by playing with it, and play. Just use it as a search engine first, and then use it as a way to kind of capture information and express information, and then use it as a way to sort of build a foundation. Write a few prompts. Try using a more elaborate query than you've used before, especially in search engines. Now you can do that, and I'll show that to you in a second. Begin using search, and I would recommend you start with Bing and try that. And particularly, you'll need to download Microsoft's latest version of Edge. Now that runs on virtually every screen that you could be using today. It runs on cell phones, smartphones. It runs on Macs. It runs on Windows machines. I want to just give you a quick sort of look at what that might appear to be. Just give me a second here. I'm going to stop sharing and share out another file. Okay. So I hope you can all see this. Move it up a little bit farther here. This is an article back here. This is an article with an interview with Professor Steven Pinker at Harvard in February. And the title is, "Will ChatGPT Supplant Us as Writers, Thinkers?" And it's a fascinating article to read. But you'll also notice up here in the upper right corner, there's a little Bing button here that you can click on. And what you end up seeing here is a chat, a compose, and an insight sort of page, tab that you can look at. And it also provides you with a synopsis, some takeaways, what's in this page. What's really, really, really nice, you can copy and paste this and put it in a document and go back and look at it after you've read the article, or look at it before you've read the article. You can also compose information in this. And this is where it's connected to ChatGPT in a way that allows you to integrate both real-time information on the internet and the web, and also use the large language model to implement conversations or In this particular case, you can choose a tone: professional, casual, enthusiastic, etc. And you can choose a format. You can do it by paragraph. You can do it by an email that you might want to send, a blog post, or you can just simply have a list of bulleted items that you want to hold on to. You can use a short length, a medium length, or a long length, and you can generate a draft based on particular things that you want to put here. You'll notice that you have up to 2,000 words that you can place in your generator here. Now, GPT-4 can handle 35,000 words. Microsoft is throttling this back to use so that because so many users are using the system today, among other things. And you can also look at insights, which is sort of interesting. You get to see the author himself. You get to see a number of things that another of related kinds of articles that you might want to look at, and the like. So it's got some context here. It's much different than a regular one and done kind of search. It's deeper, and it allows you to integrate pieces of information into potentially a work project. It's fascinating. I highly recommend you try it. So let me stop this. Are we back to the slides? Anyone?
We are. Everything's looking great.
Okay, thanks. So get a sense of its benefits and drawbacks. It's early times. There's plenty of time to sort of explore this set of tools. Follow educators who are using it. There are a lot of people writing blogs today with services like Medium, and Substack is just brimming with useful information about how to use these tools. Follow other educators who have been experimenting. Introduce user scenarios to your students. What kinds of ways could they adopt this set of tools to improve their writing, to enhance their writing, to build a reference store that they can use for a comparative essay. Prompt writing is something I'll talk about more in a few minutes. I'll show you an example of that. Look at examples of inputs and outputs and see how they've changed over the course of altering them. You have the opportunity in the chat box on Bing to basically create a conversation and evolve a topic that you might want to have more information about. And it provides a copyable transaction of that work. Begin to identify ethical uses that advance writing skills. We're going to find when we talk about things like plagiarism in a little while that there are plenty of downsides to these tools as well. And ask yourself, how can GPT accelerate my performance? GPT can help you become a better, more productive teacher. You can create slideshows with this technology, assignments, worksheets, commentary on readings, commentary on student papers. There's much to like about the tool. It can help reduce your workload and allow you to focus on higher order problems that your students may be having. It's quite good at that. Develop and shape use policies. Your schools are, I'm sure, in the process of trying to figure out what to do. Some schools have banned the use of these tools. Others have adopted them with no limits. Maybe there's some place in the middle where we all need to be. The most important thing is to know your students' writing voices. And I'm sure all of you do that. Early in the semesters, you realize what your students are capable of as a baseline for where they're going. And it's really important to look at that and understand where it's going to and how it's going to advance over the course of using prompts and GPT to evolve and shape their work. I'll tell you a few things that I think we shouldn't do. um, reactive bands. Um, and I say that because um, they tend to introduce and perpetuate biases that may restrict users' options. Trust your students. Uh, they will make their decisions based on our interactions with them. And I've had experiences where in the early days of teaching things like bibliography generators, students would use them in my class. They'd form their references. When they get to the next class, the instructors would say, "No, you can't use them because they're 70% inaccurate, or they're only accurate to 70%." And I guess my answer to that is, well, 70% is better than 20%. At least the students are beginning to model how they have to construct these bibliographic references. Today, GPT-4 does a really good job of documenting, and I'll show you that in a little bit. Um, Disparaging its use, I think, will also only lead to students going underground with this, and I have some data to support that. Um, if you focus only on the noise, or only on the salacious sorts of things that are happening with this product and field right now, you're missing a lot. I tend to focus on signal, what's coming out, what's working, what's doing, what's pragmatically important for my students. And we talk about some of these strange things that have been happening, but I tend to sort of focus on how they can use them in their writing. And just simply avoiding it, I think, is also a mistake. It's pretty hard to avoid. Um, 2 or 3 of my students this semester have had previous experience with GPT before they came to my class, and I know that number is going to continue to increase based on what we're seeing with adoption rates. Um, I like this quote by Jaron Lanier in a New Yorker article. In the end, the most pragmatic position is to think of AI not as a tool, as a tool, but not as a creature. It is very enticing to sort of think of this thing as some kind of person or spirit of some sort that's leading us down this path, but really, it's a tool that we can use or not use. So a roadmap to some workable policies. I've talked to a lot of people about these and read a lot of various policies that are forming. And some of these things are being used today, and some of them I use. Support students in developing their own integrated digital support environment. Um, Many of my students have not mined all of the kinds of resources available for them with their computers and phones. There's a lot out there. And what they really need to start doing is figuring out a way to kind of assemble these things in a sort of a mise en place way a cooker would do, a chef would do, and and have them around them so that they can use them to work on their projects. AI as a collaborator. Um, Position ChatGPT for both its benefits and its drawbacks. There's plenty of things that are worrisome with these tools, but there are also plenty of benefits. And I tend to focus on the benefits, but I do specify drawbacks when I see them, and especially when I'm working on a paper that I see wasn't written by my student. Encourage students to acquire a critical stance, what they should use and what they shouldn't use with AI. Um, Gain experience with what has been called usefully wrong. Now, that's an interesting uh, term. It's been used in AI for quite a while, and Microsoft has been using it recently too. And what usefully wrong means is that AI can be useful even when it's not entirely accurate. For example, predictive text, which is that in predictive text, usefully wrong, might suggest a word or a phrase that is not actually exactly what the user is intended, but it's still helpful in some ways. In other words, it's brainstorming, it's ideation, it's um, oh, I really don't want to go in that direction, or this, I don't understand this. I need to find out more about what this is saying. So it leads you down various paths in I think, a more efficient, effective way. Discuss the ethical and responsible uses of AI. How do you develop prompts? How do you manage prompts? I'm going to talk about those again in a few minutes, show you an example. What are the inputs and outputs? Um, Identify ethical uses that advance writing skills and be honest with your students about it. You may not have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. Um, a student came to me just last week and said, "Oh, did you know that GPT has been integrated into Snapchat?" And I said, "No, I didn't know that, but I knew that they had developed a programming interface, and so Snapchat had already brought pieces of AI into its application." Try incremental solutions that hit specific outcomes: structure, paragraphing, paraphrasing, thesis generation, and reasoning. I'll talk a little bit about some of these. Um, Particularly with paraphrasing, I found an early GPT tool called Quillbot that does a marvelous job of providing um, paraphrases of sentences, student sentences. I will sometimes ask a student, why don't you try Quillbot with this sentence? See if they provide a more streamlined way of saying what you're trying to say, or can you adopt some of their phraseology in a way that's going to make your sentences work better? It's been really well received by some of my students. Thesis generation. There's physical thesis generators now that are quite good. When I started using these in 2007, 2008, they were pretty rough, and I used them only as examples of something that was coming down the road. But today they're much more effective, and ChatGPT can do wonderful thesis generation. Reasoning. Um, ChatGPT 3.5 had a early version of what is called chain of thought, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few seconds. That's where I think a really important set of features will be helpful for our students. Um, so I want to just say one thing about this, and that is introducing GPT can expose many limitations in how we've implemented digital literacy initiatives. Many of my students do not have well-honed strategies and skills for exploiting these tools. That's one of the reasons why I wrote Writing in Our Digital World. I ran into so many students who had no idea that they were using their laptops and phones in ways which could be very helpful for prompting them and guiding them through a series of writing exercises in a better way. And it's paid off for these students. So what have I learned in this process? Well, it's been generally a positive experience for students. Um, Use of AI assisted writing supports help students learn how to write better. And I really mean that. They learn how to write better with these tools. They look at patterns, they understand patterns. Um, some of the tools, like Microsoft's Word, has a grammar and refinements component that actually provides the rule that it's enforcing or attempting to enforce with a student. So the student actually acquires that skill in a repetitive way over a period of the semester. When introducing these concepts incrementally, it helps students um, begin to integrate some of the capabilities into their writing. When it's positioned as a modeling tool and not as a direct copy tool, students can use it as a way to brainstorm how they will write their sentence or write their paragraph. They pick up theory, they gain control. And the point about that is that these are durable skills that they can take with them when they leave school. because they will have experienced them in a way that they have a, a, a laptop or a mental model of what they're looking at with these kinds of capabilities that they can apply. Students now have an AI collaborator. They can blend into their drafting workflow. So you can think of AI as a teaching assistant. We all would love to have teaching assistants. Demystify AI assistants, acknowledge limitations, admit your limitations, but find support services for those needing them. YouTube is just chock full of information about these tools now, and institutional support will be coming along, I'm sure. Empower your students to find their own solutions. Determine how students should credit or cite AI use. In the future, what I'll be asking students to do is, if they use AI, is to provide me with also the prompt that they've developed for that AI, for that word project, and I have a conversation with them about how they used it, and celebrate interesting achievements. These are features and benefits and workflows that are going to be usable by these students for quite a while. So how to use essay prompts? Well, a GPT prompt is really a thesis statement on steroids. If you look at it that way, you realize that what you're doing is front-loading the writing process by conceptually allowing the student to think through what they're writing about, why they're writing about it, who they're writing it for. And if they can assemble that in a paragraph or two, up to 2,000 words in Bing, they can create an astounding first draft or working draft that they can use for their first draft. It contains the essentials of a thesis statement. I think of it more as an artist's palette, where you're mixing in the sandbox, in this particular case, on a palette of things together, and then you're eventually rendering it. But it's more like a creative palette for writing. It hones thinking skills by front-loading the work onto a template that you're using to create a draft or a baseline. Students pick up more of the analytical skills easier. The more relevant factors can be you can input, the more content you can refine and shape. So the more you can think about it up front, the more it's going to present a product that will be tunable. The process of creating a prompt is a worthy educational experience. I'm learning more as the day goes by, creating these prompts and looking at other folks who have created prompts. The prompt creation process reveals a mental model that aids in learning how written communication works, how to control written, verbal, and visual modes to express your intentions. And you can express your intentions as a video, as a table, as a graph, using these tools. There's a vibrant GPT prompt marketplace that already exists today. Prompt-based, for under $3, you can buy a fleshed out prompt for a compare and contrast essay. There are also a lot of people talking about their prompting techniques now. This one is 7 prompting techniques. You can look at that and you can see how they're fashioning their prompts and what rationale they're using for them. It's fascinating. There are actually people that are being paid today, handsomely, by the way, to be what they call prompt engineers. So this is a prompt I submitted to ChatGPT 3.5 a while back. It's not the latest version of GPT. And this is what I asked. 500-word essay about Black Lives Matter movement to describe both benefits and drawbacks. Target audience are college professors of freshman writing courses. That's who I'm writing my essay for. Instructions. Use 3 reputable references, 1 for each body paragraph in MLA style. Write an engaging introduction that describes the movement and identifies 3 points to research the benefits and drawbacks. Then it talks about what the body paragraph should have. Specifically provide specific examples and statistics. Write a conclusion that restates the main points. Use formal but casual language. Make sure to cite references used in the essay and format the essay according to standard academic guidelines. And then edit and proofread the essay carefully to ensure that it's free of grammatical and spelling errors. So I put that into, at the time, ChatGPT. I was on a beta site for that. And this is what it came out with. And I'm not going to read this, but I want to show you where I could start from using a foundation to move forward. Notice that it's a well-written introduction. I can check to see whether all of these numbers are real or not. It has a number of it quotes these particular points, so it's documented well. And it has a structure and a conclusion that was asked for in the prompt. So it's quite effective. And notice here the sources are laid out, and I can go check out those sources. It's not quite an MLA format. This was done with the previous version. Today, that's much more complete. So quite interesting. So let's talk about plagiarism quickly. The guidance I'm giving is really a work in progress, as everything is with GPT. Policies look like this. Use it to generate ideas and inspiration, but make sure to use your words and ideas when writing. Use generated text as a reference, not as a final product. Give appropriate attribution. Do not copy and paste the text without proper citation or quotation. Do not solely rely on ChatGPT for reference. Check every fact. Absolutely check every fact. ChatGPT is a tool that can help you generate and shape your writing. It's not a substitute for your own work, your own thinking, your creativity. You own your work. And I've used "you own your work" as a statement throughout the semester, but it really has a little bit more meaning here. Now, this subject might get me into a little trouble, but in graduate school, I remember one of my professors said, most policies on plagiarism include some plagiarism. There are times when plagiarism is appropriate and when it absolutely isn't appropriate. Approaching AI only from the perspective of plagiarism is, I think, starting on the wrong foot. It introduces bias that can influence a student's perspective. And more importantly, conventional plagiarism catching utilities, including the AI tools, are prone to false positives. Remember that GPT systems are not copying text. They are computing and applying complex algorithms to generate a likely response based on a prompt. These algorithms consider many parameters that produce original results. So for example, when we were looking at the Bing article a while back, you can choose a certain type of voice that you might want to have as a for an article. There's dozens and dozens of pre-processed algorithms that play a role in generating the results. So for the most part, unless something has been used repeatedly and repeatedly over decades, you're probably going to get something quite unique. By the way, if you use GPT to shape a presentation or an assignment or a worksheet, consider letting your students know. I've been using a concept called first principles reasoning for a number of years. I know the topic pretty well, but I thought, and I don't talk about it in that form with my students most of the time, but I thought this semester I would actually co-write an article on that topic and and send it to my students and cite both of us as GPT and me as authors. And they were quite surprised when they got it. They were sort of laughing a bit, but they could see that other people are using these tools, and even instructors are using these tools. And it became a much more of a sort of a ice-breaking kind of a moment for all of us. So final thoughts. Remember that other people have been in working with these generators for quite a while, and this came out in January of this year, and it was advice from responses from faculty on ChatGPT and AI-assisted writing. People at the MIT Comparative Media Studies group and the writing group, and it was really based on a set of pros and cons that they were looking at and describing. But these were some of the results that they had written about. There are several ways in which these tools can be used right away. They can be used to help struggling writers who don't know where to begin for their assignments, brainstorming ideation. They can be used as thought partner by students as they bounce around ideas that can further help their development. They can help students revise their ideas through reframing or restating their prose. I found that students who have, particularly English learners, have a great affinity for this capability of paraphrasing, especially those students who have different types of tenses than we have in English. They're not SVO modeled linguistically, and so they have issues with word order and syntax. These tools help them see patterns that they can use to encode and decode their writing into an English model, which is great, and they can do it on their own. So I asked GPT what it could do to help us, and it came up with these: a tool for generating feedback on student writing, yes; a source of inspiration for writing projects and prompts; a partner for collaborative writing, help with brainstorming, outlining, arguments, revising; an adversary for critical thinking, identifying fallacies, biases, or inconsistencies in reasoning. I talked about chain of thought earlier, and that tool is really exciting as a critical thinking accelerator. Chatbot is, and a qualification, chatbot is not meant to replace human writing instructors, but rather to augment their capabilities and enhance their teaching experience. Absolutely. And that's the way I believe I'll be approaching this in the future. I have a few helpful resources for you to look at. Some of these have been really helpful. I mentioned Ethan Mollick here, and this is a Substack link. You can download the Bing using this link. Some advice from the faculty at MIT, which we've talked about, and a few other things here that you might find interesting. There's also a free online introduction to artificial intelligence for non-experts that's quite excellent grounding for what AI is. So I'd love to hear your reactions. I have one last quote, and this is from a high school student at Moravian Academy in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. The path forward starts by trusting students to experiment with the tool and guiding them through how, when, and where it can be used. You don't need to restructure your whole curriculum around it, but blocking it will only send it underground. And I think that's one of the wisest statements I've had in this presentation. So thank you all. I'm opening up for questions.
Wonderful. Well, we've got quite a few questions. I don't think we'll have time to answer them all, but I did see some that I thought would be really good to bring up. So we have one question that says, my real concern with AI is the fact that it could and does absorb biases that crop up in people's language and ideas. What are your thoughts on that?
That is a double-edged sort of sword, I think. Yes, it does. I mentioned biases several times in this presentation, and those can be noted. However, um, we're biased. We're all biased. Um, and if we're looking for perfection with a completely bias-free world in the sorts of things that are out there today, we're not going to find that. Um, the best thing we can do, I think, is to acknowledge it and to deal with it on a case by case basis as it shows up. Um, some people, some theorists have actually said that it's kind of a good thing because it's going to make some of these issues more apparent to all of us as we um, tune the artificial intelligence solutions that we use along the way. So that's how I see it right now. Yes, it's a danger. Yes, we need to call it out. And yes, we can open up any news article today and find bias there. We have to deal with it, um, in an ethical and moral way as we come across it. I hope that
Absolutely.
answers that.
Yeah, wonderful. We have a question here. Could you be more specific about how this tool can help with creating presentations?
Well, Microsoft is integrating it into PowerPoint, and I'm absolutely certain that Google will be integrating it into its slides. Um, but there are some free services out there. One of them is called GPT Slides, and you can open that up and you can get a free. You can use it for free, and then you can pay for it if you decide you want to use it some more. But it's a very interesting tool that can generate a slideshow for you on a variety of different subjects, and of course, then again, it's the prompt that you design that you use to kind of develop the slideshow. But I've actually created a couple of slideshows with with GPT slides, and it's quite fun and quite astounding. I didn't use this. I haven't used the slides, but if I had used the information in the slides, I would I would mention it um, a source. I hope that helps. If you just simply Google or Bing GPT slides, you'll find a frothy group of applications out there that most of them offer some sort of free service.
Perfect. All right, and I think we've got time for one more question today. But let's see. If we have, it says, if AI aids in writing papers, how do we differentiate students on their writing abilities? You had made an excellent point earlier about really kind of having that baseline with your students. And so, yeah, how do we then differentiate students on their writing abilities?
Yeah, that really is, I think, one of the keys is understanding how a student can reimagine what they've drafted with GPT in their own words, in their own real words. And it's pretty obvious that GPT right now, at least, um, is pretty easy to pick out from a student, especially if you know their baseline, where they're coming from. And it's you I sort of deal with plagiarism in a personal way with my students. It's something I talk about throughout the semester. And what I want them to feel like is that they can come to me, they can give me something that they think I'm not going to know, but of course I do know. And I'm going to go back to them and sort of work through the process of how they turn that into their own writing. And I've done that a number of times already with students who have used GPT. Um, and I've done it in a way that isn't isn't based on sort of punishment, but more based on, hey, this isn't you. Go back and give me you. I'm not interested in just the data, right? So I kind of work it that way. And I say it's going to be a problem. It is going to be a problem for us all. And I think we'll see a lot of other ways to deal with this coming forward. But the bottom line is trust our students and have them trust us to um, help them mold their writing in a way that they're going to own it. Ownership is a really important component of this, that I think a concept that I use a lot with my students. Um, so I guess is that it? I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone, so much for attending today. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much, Ed, for this really insightful presentation. We all really enjoyed it. I think we all learned a lot of things today. And then I would be remiss if I didn't again mention the fact that you've got a book with Kendall Hunt Publishing, Writing in Our Digital World, a writing guide for New Era that kind of talks about other ways to help use technology in your writing classes and for your students' aids. And so if you are interested in that, we'll be sending more information about that as well. But the recording will be coming to everyone within the next week. We'll also be sending out this slideshow. And thank you again, everyone. Thank you again, Ed, and everyone have a wonderful day.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Megan. And if anyone has any specific questions that they want to continue to refine, feel free to send me an email on at my Bunker Hill address, and I'll respond. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.